All right. And we are live here with the Gestalt IT Rolino. I am joined by my co-host, co-worker, and indeed co-human being, Tom Hollingsworth. Tom, thanks for being on the show.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, Rich.
If you haven't caught the Gestalt IT rundown, we're in our third week, episode, iteration, what have you, and we try and run down just some of the bigger stories in enterprise IT, see where they're at, get Tom and my reaction on it, and just try and keep you up to date on maybe some of the stories that fell through the cracks. We're going to start out, this is the first time we're going to try and do this. We're going to do a little quick hits. On another podcast, I did this. It was very similar. We had a segment called Doom or Duh, where we decided if something was a marker of the end of the world or not. This is not quite so serious. We're just going to decide, is this just an announcement? Is this a big deal? Could this be, you know, where does it fall on the scale of maybe a 0 to 10? So, Tom, are you ready for this news takedown?
I think I'm ready.
Okay. First up, we have AWS making encryption default on S3 buckets. Previously, this basically had to be a explicit policy. Big deal, no deal, or, you know, just kind of a mile marker?
Big deal, and I don't know why they didn't do it earlier.
It's kind of shocking that they got this big and being like, encryption, I'm sure you can just guess the URL and get access to all this stuff.
Pretty much.
Next up, we have Nutanix launching Acropolis Object Storage Service. This basically gives an API that lets devs use Nutanix storage for on-demand services, very similar to cloud storage, kind of moving HCI maybe into maybe more of a private cloudy kind of place. Big deal, no deal, mile marker.
Mile marker for Nutanix. This is a growth for them. They need to get out of simple boxes, and this is the way they're going to do it.
Is this them trying to either escape kind of the pigeonhole of HCI or expanding what HCI is capable of?
Expansion. This gives them additional platforms, and when you look at the number of object storage companies that are out there right now, I literally can't count them all on these hands. You know where this is going.
All right, next up, in what is dead may never die news, the Sprint T-Mobile merger is supposedly dead. Is this good for competition, bad for having dominant three-party competition for U.S. telecoms, and will the enterprise even notice?
Enterprise won't notice. I can't tell you the last time I even heard of anyone attempting to buy a phone from Sprint. You've got the big ones out there, AT&T and Verizon. T-Mobile is the scrappy upstart, and Sprint is, well, they're Sprint.
Someone's got to upgrade that BlackBerry, Tom. I think that's very unfair. And finally, Cisco Spark Assistant for Meetings debuted. This goes along with the Cisco Spark kind of meeting platform. Is this going to be something that makes WebExes slightly less intolerable or completely insufferable?
I don't think it's going to really affect it one way or the other. Cisco's been concentrating on using Spark as a platform to do a lot of automation and intelligent type stuff. But I can remember seeing this with the infamous one-touch telepresence phones back in the day. This is just the software version of that.
It does kind of strike me, though, that, you know, I mean, obviously a WebEx, you're already recording everything, but then adding in another system, I know there's already some security concerns with IoT, you know, in enterprise environments. This is now going to be, you know, theoretically something that's actively listening and that's actively going to be looking, you know, to make insights. At first, it's just going to be very limited to corporate directories and setting up meetings and, you know, just kind of very basic stop, start, maybe next slide kind of functionality. But I would think that at some level, this is a security concern, right?
You'd think that. I'm pretty sure the way Cisco is going to push this is that because you have complete control over it, you'll be limiting exactly what it can do and say. And I'm sure there's going to be, it's Cisco, there's going to be knobs to tweak somewhere that allow you to leave certain things out, like this won't monitor the CEO's emails.
Okay, so moving on to kind of one of our big stories. This broke almost right after we finished recording our last Gestalt IT rundown. But the big news of last week was VMware to acquire VeloCloud, or at least, you know, in enterprise networking, that was kind of one of the big stories. VeloCloud, a big player in the SD-WAN kind of space, a little bit more service provider focused, I would say, than maybe some of the other SD-WAN vendors out there. I'm just kind of wondering, Tom, where does this kind of put SD-WAN right now? One, what does this mean for VMware? Because it seems kind of a weird position for them. But how does this affect the SD-WAN landscape?
Well, for VMware, it's a big pickup because it gives them a lot of capabilities that they can utilize. You've got VPN, secure VPN capability, both hybrid to private or hybrid to public cloud. You've got the ability to deploy virtual appliances to remote branch offices and extend capabilities down in there. There's a lot of places that VMware can go with this. From the SD-WAN landscape, it makes things really interesting. You've got the two biggest players that were taken off the market within the last 6 months, 7 months. You've got Viptela and VeloCloud out. You've got Versa and CloudGenix and Talari who are still left, but now you're staring down the barrel of it's sink or swim time. You either have to make this into a business that makes money and has customers, or you're going to find yourself getting snapped up by the last person on the dance floor that needs a partner.
I mean, is this you know, be it Cisco, be it it's just a subset of features now.
It's really weird. It's starting to line up like it's a feature subset. It's most, you know, these are augmentations into existing platforms, and I think that's one of the things that Cisco was trying to combat with IWAN originally was, you know, hey, we do a lot of SD-WAN stuff, but we do more. And that worked so well that they went out and bought one of the other companies, and they're positioning their SD-WAN offering alongside of Meraki's SD-WAN offering. And that's basically where they're at right now. I see a lot of the VMware stuff being a feature set integration, which does speak more to, hey, we do a few things as opposed to this is a platform to build on.
You know, I think maybe Riverbed has, you know, they're not an SD-WAN company. They have, you know, a pretty extensive SD-WAN portfolio, and they'll be very enthusiastic to show it to you. But I think maybe the closest, you know, we'll see to a dedicated SD-WAN is maybe like a WAN, you know, an evolution of the continuing evolution of WAN optimization kind of companies, you know, kind of similar to what Riverbed's been doing for years.
Yeah, exactly. Riverbed has cut their teeth in the WAN market, so they want to keep it alive and growing as much as possible. And SD-WAN is one of the few things that will augment that for them. I don't see any other company, maybe aside from HPE, wanting to get into that market. And I would not be surprised in the next 6 months to see HPE snap up one of the few remaining independent SD-WAN offerings as opposed to trying to develop their own.
Do you want to start a rumor, Tom? Do you just want to say like, hey, you know, HPE, I'm hearing the scuttlebutt is Silver Peak's on the, you know, the old Chapel. You know, I just kind of want to start a rumor mill here. That's all.
Oh, sure. I'm more than willing to throw this one out. I'm pretty sure that HPE is going to buy CloudGenix sometime in the next 6 months.
Okay. Well, I will owe you a drink if that comes to pass. The other kind of big news that was happening this week, at least kind of a big trend I saw, was a lot of weird chip acquisitions, partnerships that are coming down the pipeline, and like some pretty huge names. The biggest one is that Broadcom is looking to acquire Qualcomm. Now, this is going to be a $103 billion deal. Maybe I'm just an idiot, but I did not realize Broadcom was nearly that big. I just assumed they were just like the chip that came on every motherboard that I ever bought ever. But Tom, what does this mean? You know, I'm thinking of this from a variety of perspectives. You know, Qualcomm has so many businesses. Obviously, they're a huge name in the ARM space. They're a huge venture fund as well. You know, I just saw a press release that Accelero, you know, a storage company is you know, getting, you know, $20 million or something like that from Qualcomm Ventures. What ripple effects will this have? Does this condense enterprise investment, chip investment? Just kind of give me a sense of what this will mean in the enterprise.
Yeah, this is absolutely about consolidation and trying to get economy of scale even further. For Broadcom, I can't see this as anything else other than trying to get themselves into the mobile space. Qualcomm basically dominates right now. I'm pretty sure most of the new iPhones have Qualcomm modem in them.
For now, and they are not paying patent licenses on them right now. Yeah,
exactly. That's a huge discussion from a legal perspective, but they're the dominant, one of the dominant forces, and that is something that Broadcom really wants to get into. I mean, we saw this already. Broadcom is trying to close acquisitions on Brocade's old chipset and fiber channel stuff. They're playing the long game of everything is going to need chips sooner or later, and we need to position ourselves in a place where we can provide those chips.
It seems weird though that ARM is supposedly eating everything, right? X86 is feeling the pressure on the low end. It's rapidly scaling up in processing power while still maintaining is that ARM has across a variety, increasingly into enterprise. ARM in the data center drink is the perpetual rumor. It's Linux on the desktop. If ARM is so pervasive, how does a company like Qualcomm acquisition target, albeit $100 billion one?
Easy. They have less than $103 billion in the bank. No, this is what it is. Broadcom actually was acquired by another holding company, I believe, early this year, late last year. And this is absolutely them just trying to put a portfolio together and trying to grow it from there. And yeah, it's funny to hear that you're so successful and so popular. How could anybody buy you? And the answer is everybody has a price.
Well, and in that regard, in other, kind of chip merger news, the rumor now is that Marvell is in aggressive talks to acquire Cavium. Their portfolios, they kind of line up very similarly to, Broadcom and Qualcomm. You could argue that Cavium is maybe a little bit, maybe even more data center focused. Obviously, they have some automotive stuff. They have some more mobility portfolio than well, I shouldn't say than Qualcomm, but obviously a much more focused chip maker than a huge one like Qualcomm. Is this just the same thing where we're seeing because software on chips is adding so much capability, the actual chips themselves are just consolidating?
Yeah. This is augmentation. They're where they overlap, they're trying to get better, faster, and cheaper, and where they don't overlap, they're just trying to move into new areas and get some synergy or some other buzzwordy thing from Jeff Immelt. I don't know.
Does this, and again, ARM of the data center is, perpetually 5 years away. Do either of these moves move the needle in terms of making that more of a reality or making it harder?
Nope. I don't think it's going to move the needle at all. And a lot of it's going to come down to, it's not the chipset availability. It's the, it's the capability of the developers to write for that. I mean, ARM in the data center is 5 years away, and from what I remember, Apple making their own chips for Macintoshes is supposed to be 3 years away, and that's the same kind of thing. It's that'll happen when someone rewrites Mac OS to run on ARM or something else, and